Okay, Don, in this report, you all talk about um, an evaluation that was completed by I guess, the chief judge's office that showed that bail reform had no impact on violence in Chicago. But there's criticisms of that analysis. What was wrong with that analysis methodologically?
Yes. No, I think we should credit the Chief Judge's Office for wanting to look at the impact of a reform that they put in place. I mean, as you said at the beginning, rarely do we use data to evaluate policies and practices in the criminal justice system. And soon after the Chief Judge issued the general order that changed bail practices in Cook County, his office sought to assess the impact of that change on bond court decisions, who was released, and whether or not individuals were charged with a new crime while on pretrial release. And as you pointed out, the Chief Judge's Office, the report showed that there was no change essentially in new criminal activity by those who were released pretrial. There's a couple problems with their report. One, they didn't seek to match groups. So, like those who were released before the reforms, there was no effort to ensure that they were the same as those who were released after the reforms. The follow-up periods for the two groups were quite different. The group who was released, or the pretrial release decisions made before the reforms went into effect, those individuals were followed, for 2.5 years. Those who released after the reforms went into effect, some of them were followed for as little as 2 or 3 months. So there were different follow-up periods, and that would affect whether or not people had an opportunity to be charged with a new crime after they were released pretrial. There was also a question about seasonality, so that some of the defendants in the pre-reform group were followed through the summer, when we know crime rates are higher, when there are more arrests in the city, and the group released post-reforms weren't followed through the summer. So there's a problem with individuals being more at risk for being rearrested in one group than the other. Those were the primary critiques of the Chief Judge's report.
And I think an important.
Two other. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think importantly, there were a number of flaws that were identified in their methodology. People were very quick to say then all of their results should not be believed. When we corrected for those methodological flaws, we essentially didn't really find anything different. So despite the flaws that they had in their design, it didn't substantively change any of the conclusions that we reached when we applied a more rigorous methodology.